Starting. Just waiting for the live stream. Welcome to the SJS1 podcast. SJS1 is a home to live events, games, interviews, and more for South Jersey sports. We're building the SJS1 platform from the ground up, a grassroots effort by dedicated youth sports leaders from South Jersey. You can now find the SJS1 podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Tonight, we have Dan Paolini. Dan's a highly respected USSF assigner, mentor, official, specifically a New Jersey referee assigner, and I'm told a pretty good sax player. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for coming on to our show. And I'm going to ask everyone to unmute.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being on, Dan.
All right, Dan, so if you don't mind, can you start with just a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Okay. So as was mentioned, I am both an official and a assigner and assessor instructor, which is in the process of migrating to the title mentor of referees, which is more on the instructional and coaching end of the referee world. And I've been involved in soccer in one form or another since I was in high school, but it's only been for the last 20 years or so where I've been actively involved in U.S. soccer with my referee license. I also referee high school, which is a different sport, high school soccer. It's got different rules, but it's also something I enjoy. And up until this summer, I had been for the past 3.5 years, the New Jersey State Youth Referee Administrator, which is a position on the New Jersey State Referee Council that also sits on the board of New Jersey Youth Soccer, and is charged with growing and mentoring and developing referees that serve the youth game, which is the vast majority of the games in New Jersey on any given day, any given week, are those games that are for under 19 players.
Thank you. And so for, as part of growing and mentoring youth refs, for all the young folks that are thinking about being a ref, how do you become a ref?
Okay. It'll sound complicated. It's a pretty straightforward process. And I'm going to mention this, and I'll mention it again at the end. The website for the New Jersey State Referee Committee is njrefs.com. And on that website, there's information about referees and refereeing and how to become a referee. So the process starts out by the candidate creating an account with U.S. Soccer. U.S. Soccer Federation is the controlling body for all IFAB and FIFA affiliated soccer in the United States. And once the account is created, that candidate would sign up for a online training that's required by U.S. Soccer. And there's three, depending on the age of the candidate, they have multiple online assignments that they must complete. They may be required to get a background check if they're 18 or older. They will be required to complete something called Safe Sport, which is a federal law that governs all sports that are affiliated with the U.S. Olympics, including soccer. If they're 18 or over, they must complete that. And then once all of the assignments are completed with U.S. Soccer, they are then permitted to register with New Jersey State Referee Committee for additional training. Typically, before the pandemic, we would include a field clinic and give some hands-on instruction to referees. But for now, we're doing, the referee committee is doing that with webinars. So once that webinar is completed, they will receive their license, they'll receive their badge, they'll, as part of their registration process, it includes the initial starter uniforms so that the referee can hit the ground running, hopefully. And then at that point, they're a licensed referee within the state of New Jersey and may start to seek game assignments from assigners like me and others.
So what does it cost for somebody to take all these courses?
All right, I think, and I may not have the current price. In the past, it was somewhere less than $150. 135 sticks in my mind, but that price may have changed for the coming 2022 licensing year. But the fee covers all of the US soccer online training that's required. It provides the referee with a starter uniform kit, which is not just a uniform, jersey, shorts, socks, and what have you, but also whistles and cards and flags. And it also includes the New Jersey portion of the training that's done online or in person, as the case may be. And the only thing it does not cover would be the background check, which is a separate fee that's charged every 2 years.
Okay. So let's say I go through all this. I've taken the online classes. I've done everything. I come out, got my badge, I'm official. Where am I starting? I'm assuming I'm not, just because I'm old, it doesn't mean I start with the U18s and go out and work that game right away.
Well, Red Bull games are usually harder to pick up.
Okay.
Now, so regardless of, well, I shouldn't say it that way. The age of the official, the newly minted official, will matter if they're under 18, because there are restrictions and what situations we will put those officials in, what levels of games they can work for their own safety. And I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. But regardless of that, or in addition to that, regardless of the age of the referee candidate, you don't walk out on the field doing a highly competitive match your first game. So the ways that referees can get started, there are several. One is by doing recreational level games. These are often called non-competitive soccer, or they're in-house soccer, or house soccer, or rec soccer. And typically they don't involve the need for passes and rosters. They are simply, everybody shows up hopefully in the same color shirt on a Saturday morning. And this is a good place to get experience in what can be a little bit of a high pressure situation from a spectator perspective, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a way to learn and make mistakes without creating a ripple effect, because everybody who starts will make mistakes. So one place that people can start is in recreation soccer. A second way that they can get started is by being an assistant referee. You'll hear people call these linesmen. That's not correct. A club linesman is actually somebody who's not a referee, who's been asked to hold the flag to indicate a ball out of play. So an assistant referee is actually a licensed official assigned to that game, but is responsible for offside and balls in and out of play and goals, no goals, and assisting the referee in other ways. And especially on the younger games, that can be a great place to start to absorb the game and what a referee's job is. And that becomes the third point, that regardless of how you get started in competitive soccer, you're going to be working on the younger games, the younger ages, until such time as you show confidence, you show skill and ability, and you show desire to work higher level games.
So with that said, what are some of the common issues that you're seeing with the referees? So younger referees in particular, right? So you hear coaches yelling and screaming about things. What are some of the common issues that you hear from the younger referees as they're learning and doing these things?
Well, that's going to take a little bit longer to answer.
Okay.
They fall into some broader categories. So about, I would say, roughly somewhere between 800 and 1,000 new referees get licensed every year in New Jersey. And up until the pandemic, we would lose somewhere between 800 and 1,000 referees every year. So in other words, we were in a break-even mode with about 5,000 referees in New Jersey.
So I'm going to pause you just for a second there, because I want that to sink in. You've got 100% attrition.
Well, yeah, we were treading water basically.
Yeah.
When things were good.
Okay.
So 5,000 referees met the needs of youth soccer for the most part across New Jersey. On any given day, there might be a shortage somewhere, but then the pandemic hit and a couple things happened. One is that people who may have been retiring 2 years out or a year out said, you know, I'm done, right? They're because of their age, their health, they didn't recertify. Other people didn't know what the pandemic was going to do last year and didn't recertify because they weren't sure they wanted to go back out on the field. And then we ran into issues trying to get new students certified through classes. So we added about 600 referees last year, but we lost about 1,600, or actually about 1,400, I'm sorry. So we dropped 800 referees last year. So when we got started again in the fall went okay. This past spring, 2021, we were hurting. And so the referee committee has been working very hard to get more referees through the classes. And we're back up to about 5,000 right now. But the problem is that many of those people are still not working. They may have gotten their certifications, but they're not working. But if I can back up for a second to your point of 100% attrition. So why do we lose 1,000 every year? And because it's likely we'll do it again next year. So some portion of those, about a third of our referees are 60 or over. So that's an issue. That's a problem. It's a problem for a variety of reasons. Somebody like me can't be doing a U17 boys game. And every once in a while, though, there's somebody like me doing a U17 boys game. I don't have the fitness anymore, and it wouldn't be an ideal assignment. So we have an older referee population, and then about a third of our referees are under 20. They're teenagers. And the people we lose in that 1,000 each year, you would expect to lose the older referees who are aging out, and that happens. People get injured or people move sometimes. We have military people who get rotated to a new assignment somewhere in the country and they move on. But the sad part is we may add 1,000 teenagers a year. We're going to lose probably half of them in 2 years. Probably 60% of them will be gone in 3 years. So why does that happen? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is some of them try it and they don't really like it. Maybe their parents thought it would be a great job for them and they didn't like it, or they have activities in high school. And I assign high school age referees and they're always apologizing because they turned back an assignment because their team made the playoffs, and they can't work the game on Saturday. You're only going to be in high school one time. So we want these younger referees to enjoy their high school age years. But we also find that some of these referees, these young referees, are bullied. They're abused on the field by adults who aren't acting like adults. And when we do interviews with people and try to find out why it is that they're leaving or not renewing, it is the single biggest reason referees don't renew is the behavior they receive on the pitch from adults. We all expect a player to complain if they don't like the call, and they get a yellow card if they do it too much. But there's no reason in the world any spectator should ever, ever, ever be yelling anything at any referee, regardless of their age. But with safe sport now being a federal law, I don't think parents have been told about this enough, that by creating an abusive environment, an emotionally challenging environment for an under 18 official, it may be a reportable safe sport event. And I don't think people realize that. They think they're entitled to bully a child. And that's why we're losing a good portion of the referees each year.
So what would you suggest so say you have a young referee coming in the door, and I wholeheartedly agree, because it's why I'm not a ref personally, because I would not be able to deal with the abuse that the parents dealt out, or coaches, or even sometimes the older players, right? So as a young ref, how would you recommend that they deal with those situations?
Okay. So we in the training we give them, and there's, besides the classes that I told you about as referees show promise, they start to be exposed to additional higher level training and events such as the state cups and being given formal mentoring and assessments to help them improve. But there's a theme in all of that in which we want them to reach out to a senior referee, a mentor, an assessor, an assigner, if they have an issue, if they experience a problem. The worst thing in the world when I first started assigning is I'd have a young referee go dark on me. And I didn't know enough to find out why. And then once I realized what was happening, whenever I hear that somebody's had a difficult game, I'm reaching out to them and trying to talk them off the ledge. And so the first thing we tell young referees is, unfortunately, it happens. When it happens, it's not about you. It's the way the other people who are behaving that should know better. But if it happens, we must deal with it. We need to caution coaches. We need to remove spectators, not the referees themselves. It's not their job. We need to document the information and reports to the competitions. Some leagues are better than others at zero tolerance for these types of things, but every league experiences it at one time or another. I think the bullying of under 18 referees, that's unconscionable. I can't understand why people think that that's okay. I would hope that that would just go away on its own, but it doesn't look like it's going to. But every so often, there's somebody who literally physically attacks a referee, adult or once even an under 18 referee in the last couple of years in New Jersey. And when I was with the referee committee, I had to deal with those incidents. And that's, hey, these are 14-year-old players enjoying a game, and yet adults think it's something that they need to come to physical blows about. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are in a tough position, right? Because no matter what call you make, half the people are mad at you, right? So,
Yeah.
So now as a coach, I'm unhappy with a call that was just made. I think it was made incorrectly. Whatever the reason behind it, what's the best way for me to ask that question? Because people, to tell people they're not going to make a question is not going to happen. But I mean, so what's the best way to respectfully ask the question without escalating the situation, shall we say?
All right. So if we start out with the laws of the game, in which the coaches and the players, for that matter, cannot ever question a call. Yet there's a myth of the game that people think. And in part, it's because high school soccer permits the coach to question the referee. And that kind of carries over in the youth sports. But under the laws of the game, no, they can't question the call. And the coach will say, well, but no, I'm asking a question. I'm not questioning the call. Okay. And as a referee, if you ask me a polite question, why was that call made? And I gave you an answer, and that would be the end of it. Well, of course we will answer a polite or respectful, I should say, respectful question. But that's not usually the end of it, because they didn't like the call. They're not going to like the answer, and they're going to want to argue about it. And now the game is in disrepute. And if the referee then deals with the coach feels like he's being picked on. So the first thing I try to explain to coaches is, no, you can't question that call. At halftime, wait for the referee to come off the field and ask him if he's got a minute. Could you just tell me what happened there? Right? Yeah. Or after the game. But it's not going to change anything. Maybe.
I was going to say, Dan, has in the history of referees, has that questioning a referee's call ever resulted in a change of the referee's decision?
Actually, here's why people do it. Because every so often, maybe 1 in a million times, some referee, for whatever reason, changes the call.
I've never seen it.
Right, well,
I've never seen it.
It's usually because somebody got bullied, right? And they go, oh, yeah. And actually, I know it. The only time I know it happened in a game that I assigned was a 16-year-old referee who, and the opposing coach actually contacted me later, and he said he felt bad for the kid, but that the other coach bullied him into changing a call. But that's the point. That can't happen. He shouldn't have changed the call, but he shouldn't have been put in that position. But I know I'm always
afraid that when there's a decision point that's not necessarily an obvious call, that if I've done something like that, question a ref's call, that I put myself on, I don't get the benefit of the doubt if there's a doubt. So why would I do that?
Sports psychology, right?
Yeah.
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 So
I mean,
nobody's going to penalize you if you're asking a question. But if you're one of those coaches who's been a pain in the neck all game long, you know, sports psychology, why go there, right?
I don't understand it, to be honest. I really don't.
But
Not
that's a
logical
hypothetical.
conclusion. Sure.
That's a hypothetical. So in the grand scheme of things, though, I advise coaches, ask a question. If you don't like the answer, let it go. And they go, what do you mean? I got it. No, what you do after the game, you contact the league, you contact the assigner. You say, in this game, in the 20th minute, this referee, this happened. I think this is the wrong call. And the only reason to do that is because I'd like that referee to learn, so the next game that he or she does,
yeah,
they'll make the right call. Now, if your reason for doing that is because I'm hoping to get the result overturned, that's not my call. So, but if people would do more of that, so that we would know if there is an issue of training, because there's not enough people to go out and watch referees objectively. So we have to rely on the coaches to give us feedback. So if a coach starts out by saying, worst referee in the world cost us the game, I have trouble reading the rest of the feedback. If they say, here's a referee, I think in this case, if I read law 11 right, I don't think he made the correct offside call, right? Okay, now we have a conversation with the referee and we can help them learn.
I think we lose sight of the education part of the youth part of the game, right? It's not only are the players learning, but the coaches are learning. And in this case, the ref would be, helping us learn, or seeing maybe where we would be confused. So losing sight of that, I can see where there's kind of dust ups that shouldn't happen.
If we start out with the premise that there's really first of all, there's absolutely no reason for any spectator to ever direct anything at the field in any kind of negative way. Cheer for your team, leave the other team's players alone, and don't say anything to the referees, except at the end of the game, good job, or don't say anything. If we start with that, that solves a major issue with the way that referees feel that they're under attack, especially, or being bullied, maybe is more accurate. And then if we can get coaches to realize that there is a way to improve the referee quality, but it's not going to happen in the 33rd minute of your match by you yelling. And it's not going to happen at the end of the match by you yelling. It's only going to happen if you give useful, actionable feedback to the assigner and to the league. And then over time, we improve the referee corps. However, we also know that if you have a good referee, or a referee who has potential, and you drive them away, and the replacement for that referee is somebody that got their badge yesterday, the quality of the refereeing just went down, and it went down because of you, coach.
So what do you say to the coaches that aren't the ones yelling? Like you said, you got parents that shouldn't be yelling in there, and the game starts getting out of control. How should the referees and the coaches handle that?
So when you say game getting out of control, define that a little bit better.
See, you have one call. Well, take your instance where a referee overturns his call. That just opens.
Well, let's not go there, because like I said, it's happened one time in 15 years for me. But.
Okay. So all right. So we'll say for instance, there's a tackle that one side believes is a little bit rough. And a little frivolous, right? Should have been a card, whatever. Maybe the foul was even given, but they felt as though it should have been a card. So now you get parents start chirping every time there's a touch.
So we got to stop there.
Escalating.
Right. So we stop there and we say, don't chirp. It doesn't matter what you think. You may be a parent. You may be 100% right. You have no right to complain to the referee at that game or after the game. We've had parents chase referees into the parking lot. We've had to have police called because a parent felt that their opinion mattered. Their opinion is an opinion. there's a way to bring the league's attention to a problem referee, but it's never going to be at the field. So we got to stop there. We got to stop parents from thinking that, oh, maybe in this situation, it's okay if I abuse the referee or attack the referee. It's zero tolerance.
So how do you advise a young referee then, right? So, I mean, I know that I used to run township level referees, and I used to tell my referees that if there's an issue on the field, I don't want you to talk to the parents. I want you to come find me.
Yes.
Because they're usually 14-year-old kids.
Mhm.
But, you know, so now let's take like a travel game where maybe your young referee is 18, 19 years old. You know, they have a little bit more gusto to them.
No, they're 14 and 15, unfortunately,
Okay.
because that's who we have right now. That's the 800, 900 people we've brought in over the last 7 or 8 months are all of that age, and they're all out there working right now.
So
Yes.
the parent, they're going to be intimidated by somebody who's an adult.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, coming at them. So how do you advise them on how to control that? And actually, how do you advise the coaches who are not the ones yelling to help control their parents?
How do we,
Okay.
yeah.
So here's the interesting thing. The referee's job is not to control the parents, ever. Referee's job is to provide a safe environment for the players and for the game to proceed. So whose responsibility is it? It's the competitions, meaning the league in your case, right? Could be a tournament. It's the tournament's responsibility. It's not even the coaches, unless the responsibility for competition administration was delegated to the coaches. And for almost all travel league games where there's no league representative officially on the sidelines, the leagues delegate to the coaches the responsibility for their parents' behavior. The home team, the home club, is the one that's ultimately responsible for whether that field is safe, if that environment is safe.
Okay.
The referee, whether it's somebody my age or it's a brand new 14, 13-year-old referee, is never or should never address parents directly. If it becomes an issue, stop the game, go to the coaches, say, coaches, please deal with these spectators. We just had a 16-year-old who had to have a grandfather removed from a game 2 weeks ago, who insisted that he was allowed to yell anything he wanted. This was America. And so it's the coaches that have to deal with it.
Okay.
Dave, can I jump in here?
Yep.
Dan, this is something I discussed with you before. And this, as you bring up the league's responsibility. If the league were to mandate every single team has a sideline judge, this sideline judge responsibility would be more on the lines of like, if there was that crazy call, we had one today, we had just a write-up, okay, about where there should have been a red card.
Well, we got to stop there. Well, we're getting into a dangerous area here. So what training would that person have to decide that a red card should be issued?
Okay, so that's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
He wouldn't obviously say, hey, that was the wrong call to the ref. He wouldn't say, you actually would be the person to tell these individuals how to approach the referee at halftime or at the end of the game.
Which individuals are we talking about?
Well, you
These
mean
are-
more like a field marshal. That's
The field marshal, yes.
That's looking
Well,
over on the parents, making sure the parents stay.
Well,
out.
no parent can ever approach the referee at halftime or after the game,
yes.
right?
But
Okay.
if you're saying the league responsibility is to control the parents, what if the league were to say there's a field marshal per team? So like if Northern Burlington is playing Cherry Hill FC today, Cherry Hill FC or soccer club, their parents would have a field marshal. Northern has one. Northern's parents have an issue. Cherry Hill have an issue. Would it be appropriate in the middle of the game or during halftime or at the end of the game, if they have a certificate from South Jersey Soccer League stating that they can approach this ref and say, hey, I think you really missed a call. This kid should have had a yellow card. Is that appropriate?
Absolutely not. And in fact, if that were to happen, I wouldn't be refereeing any of your games. And I would advise anybody I know not to.
So how can the league, how can we help? I guess is where I'm going with it. Like, I'm looking at it as a helping point.
All right.
My
You tell,
thought was what Dan's thought was that if it's delegated, if it's the club's home, you're responsible for the safety of that home field, then the club designating a field marshal to ensure, or at least be the, I don't know, a layer between the parents and the coach and the official. At least that's a
not to the
start where,
coaches. Yeah.
at least, right, but this person's part of the field safety kind of stack of things, including
So it's very
abusive
simple.
parents,
If there's
abusive
an issue,
sidelines.
if there's an issue on the side, on the spectator side, because we don't know if it's a parent or not, we don't know which
Right.
team it is. If there's an
Right.
issue that affects the game, the referee stops the game, walks over to the coaches and says, here's the problem, deal with it. Now, if you want to have a club parent who's been designated as that person to deal with it on the coach's behalf, that's between you and your coaches and the parents. The referee would never interact with that person, nor should they.
I was actually thinking a layer, an official at the club, say another coach, that would be there as not necessarily the authority, but an authority that would, be able to at least, settle down, right? Don't do this. We're taking names. We know your parents in our club. We've got to manage our sideline decorum in a way that, it's a standard that we, we can be proud of. Not this.
Yeah.
I see these reports. I am not happy that you see these things happening, but I don't know. We're not going to have police at the field. But a coach could have, not the actual coach for the teams playing, but some coach that has a background check, safe sport, all the requirements that we would have had for a coach can be there as a representative of the club, of the home team, to say, this is decorum, this is what you need to do.
Yeah, and there are ASO, for example, has a designated club parent whose job is responsible to ensure that the spectators from that club behave properly. That's all. It has nothing to do with whether people, how do we bring to the referee's attention we didn't like his call? You don't. You can't. It's that we've got to get that out of the system.
Yeah.
The only person who can do that is the coach or coaches of the team who has a concern and brings it up afterwards in the form of a written documentation about what happened and why they think the referee needs additional training. It's not about, I didn't like the call. I think a red card should have been issued. They cost us the game. All of the things that we hear for complaints, whether true or not, does not matter, because you can be the person who's going to stand on the sidelines and go, see, I was right, except you're going to be looking and there's nobody on the field. The British Football Association did a commercial like that about 10 years ago, in which they got the sideline behavior under control by saying the ultimate outcome of any behavior that is justified because somebody didn't like a referee's call is there will be no referees and there will be no soccer. So we need to stop that.
So what do you say? Oh, sorry, Keith, do you have something else?
No, I do have another talking point, but we'll further later on. Thank you, Dean.
Okay. Yep. So what do you say? What do you say to people who say, "Look, I think this referee doesn't like me," or this referee doesn't like people of color. This people doesn't like people of the opposite sex. What is there training that the officials get to help prevent any kind of bias that may be predatory?
So the training that we get is in the laws of the game. So the 17 laws of the game, and then training to how to apply the laws of the game, and which would include the fact that, as many people are not aware, that what is a foul in one game may not be a foul in another game for a variety of reasons that are all legitimate. That what is a card in one game may not be a card or misconduct in another game for a variety of reasons that are all legitimate. That the enforcement of the laws within certain boundaries are based on the opinion of the referee that day with the circumstances that are in front of the referee. As for bias, a referee by definition is fair and impartial. The reason why we have referees, in fact, was when soccer first started being played in England between clubs in different towns, Initially, it was the two captains who would decide if there had been a foul or not. And sooner or later, things got so competitive that the two captains couldn't agree. And they wanted an independent person to which they could refer a disagreement, which is where the word referee comes from. So the idea was it was somebody not affiliated with either team, no stake in the outcome. And can they make a wrong call? Absolutely. Is it because they don't like you? Very unlikely. However, if there is somebody who has shown that to be the case, that person got no business being involved in youth sports. I would hope that somebody would document, not just with opinion, but with fact, if they felt that there was some sort of bias, and that referee would need to either be educated or disciplined.
No, and it's, I think it's a fair point that I've been a coach for 20 years. I've had my fair share of referees when I see them walk up the field and I go, "Oh, this isn't going to be good," and I'm sure that the referee probably had the same opinion. When he walks up, he goes, "Oh, I know this team's rough," or something of that nature. So, I mean, from my perspective, I always say, hey, look, if we have a game where I'm concerned that the referee is being biased in some way, shape, or form, what's my avenue to report that? You said there's a way to actually report and put in some facts or something of that nature?
At the end of the game, if any coach of either team or both teams, in fact, one would argue that if both coaches reported the same problem of a referee perhaps not understanding the offside law, for example, that would be meaningful and actionable for training education purposes. But regardless of the issue, either coach or both coaches should document with facts the issue, the concern, and send it to the league. Hopefully the league would share with the assigner, and as necessary, depending on the nature of the concern, that it would be brought to the attention of people higher up in the referee committee. So, but that should be the way any issue is handled, because nothing can get handled on the field. That's just got to be the premise that everybody starts out with. You kick the ball and it's going to goal and it hits a rock right in front of the goal at the last second and it doesn't go in the goal. It's a field condition. So the referee makes a bad call. It's a field condition. Can we improve it? Yes, but not by chasing the referees away, only by education.
And education of who?
The referees. Well,
referees.
We start out by not having, making sure we educate the spectators and coaches the way that they're expected to behave, with spectators meaning no comments to the referee, coaches, respectful questions, and feedback to the league. And then, as necessary, educate referees who can use it. But here's the thing, and I don't know if everybody understands this or not. In the South Jersey leagues, half of your officials, or more than half, have less than 3 years of experience. There's no training in the world that sends somebody out for the first game that they're ever going to do, the first season they're ever going to do, the first year they're ever going to do, where they're not going to make mistakes. So the question all of you have to ask yourself is that unacceptable? This referee made a mistake. That's unacceptable. Get rid of them. Or that referee's made a mistake. How do we get them better trained? How do we give them experience? How do we mentor them and coach them so that maybe they make this mistake, but they don't make it again? That's the goal that we have. And I know the league has, but it's really the challenge, because there's this expectation that every referee is somehow starts out being perfect and gets better. And it's not true. We're all learning. I learn when every game I do, I learn something. And but anybody who believes, as many questions I've gotten over the years imply, that all or most referees do not love the game, do not want to see good soccer, do not want to do the best job possible, have some sort of bias, regardless of why. Anybody who believes that the majority of referees are that is grossly uninformed, and I would suggest that they become a referee, because they'll learn that they were wrong.
So going back to your earlier point where you talked about the shortage of referees, what do we do as a league? We touched on this a bit here. Mark throwing out some ideas, Keith throwing out some ideas about field marshals, and so what do we touch on? What do we do as a league to help with retention and recruitment and things for referees?
Okay, obviously there are multiple answers. There are not simple answers for the most part, and they won't have an immediate impact, right? But there's still things that you can be doing. One is your sister league held a recruitment event in which I want to say about 20 people attended, and I think they got 6 or 7 new referees out of that. So you can do the same things to encourage new referees to join. It's interesting. I go out and I talk to high school age players all the time, trying to encourage them to become referees. And the interesting thing they say is, why would I want to become a referee? I see the way my coach yells at them. I see the way the parents yell at them. Why would I want to be yelled at like that? So that getting the behavior under control won't solve everything overnight, but over time, it will make it easier to recruit referees and retain them. Then the other thing is we're oversaturated with games, quite frankly, right? So when you look at all the various competitions that are out there, I think leagues need to think about, do you want as many games as possible and don't care about the referee quality? Or would you rather somehow control the number of games and then therefore improve the referee quality? For example.
So yeah, Dan, to your point though, we had the opposite effect. We've lost the referees. We also, this season, we've gained 60 teams. We don't have fields. Right. And I mean, we've actually had scheduling issue where there's not enough fields. We don't have enough refs, and it's a growing pain that I don't know what the discussion is.
So, and this affects referee quality. If you think of it this way, forget for a moment how much experience somebody has. I put these stats together for the last recruitment class. Prior to the pandemic, as an assigner, I'm a busy assigner, and I probably assign almost 150 games a week in different competitions. So, and I work with many referees all over South Jersey, not just in the South Jersey League, not just in Burlington County. And before the pandemic, the average referee, if they took all my referees and all the game assignments that I made, the average referee on a given weekend day, Saturday or a Sunday, worked 1.9 games per day, basically 2 games a day on average across all referees. Meant some were working 3, maybe 4, others were working 1 or none. They weren't working that day. Now we go to the spring of 2021, they're working 3.9. They went up 2 games a day.
Wow.
So they were working 4 games a day, Saturdays and Sundays. I had somebody do over 9 days, 2 weekends and the 5 days in between, had been assigned 22 games, did 21 of them, 1 was canceled. Referees are working 6 games, 5 games a day now across all the different competitions. We've got South Jersey, both boys and girls games being made up at 9 in the morning or at 5 at night. And so these referees are exhausted. They're getting injured. That's one reason why we're short referees now, this late in the season, is that I've got 4 or 5 who are injured. Some got COVID. Some have been exposed to COVID, and they're exhausted. And some of them are going, for the first time, I never heard a referee tell me before, you know what, I don't want to work this week and I need a break. It was always, how come I only got 2 games Saturday? Right? So we're wearing these people out. And I don't know what the answer is until we get more referees, frankly.
No, it's good. And I have to say that I really do. I don't coach a team actively right now, but being part of the board there, I hear the complaints constantly about, I've only got 1 ref at my game, or I've got no ref showing up, or something of that nature. And I can only imagine what it's like to for you guys to work that many games in a row. And it probably adds to the other parent behavior items on top of that, because as you get more tired, right, you're gonna make decisions, you're gonna miss things, that's just human nature. So Yeah, so it kind of compounds the issue by doing that.
So actually, you mentioned something that I think is an important point to make for people. In most cases where somebody, a spectator or a coach, sees a tackle on the field that should have been a foul or even a card that the referee doesn't see. Because remember, I said earlier, the parent could be right, the coach could be right, right? The issue is they can't yell at the referee. But so how does that happen? How does that referee not see that foul that 5 other people could see? It's because they don't like me. No, it's not. It's because they weren't in the proper position. We talk in our training about angles. Everything in soccer for the referee, it's a very difficult position, one of the hardest in all sports, to be the referee with the whistle, to cover a full-sided game at speed. And we talk all the time about if you don't have an angle, somebody could get mugged right in front of you and you won't see it because you'll be screened. You need to get an angle to see between the players. So 2 things, people like me, no fitness left, right? So I'm not getting an angle. I've got to use my ESP, which I don't want people to know I have, so that I can figure out what's going on the field, because I don't have the physical conditioning to be where I should be and where I shouldn't be doing older games. Now that's number 1, but there are people who are fit. Why aren't they in position? Because it's the 6th or the 5th game of the day and they're tired. And so when you can't believe a referee missed the call, I can assure you, every one of the referee candidates, or almost every one of them, when they get through training, they know what a foul is. Most of them play soccer. They know what a foul is. They didn't call it for 2 reasons. One is they didn't see it. We have to teach them how to see it. Second is they were afraid to, for whatever reason. And so the afraid to goes back to parent and coach behavior. But as far as being in the right position, that's something we can work on, and we will.
So how much should they rely on the ARs in that situation? Because I've seen situations when I was coaching where, you know, the center ref was the only one that would make the call. The ARs didn't make much calls other than offsides and some routine items. Should the ARs help out a little bit more with that?
Well, so it's an interesting thing. There is the way that the game is played at the highest levels. Then there's a game that the way the game is played at youth levels, and there can be different levels of youth games as well, both age-wise and skill-wise. So if I'm working with 2 relatively new 14-year-old ARs, I'm going to make sure that they stay with the offside line and that they are at the goal line if a decision has to be made about a goal. I don't really care if they don't get every throw in correctly, because ultimately I'll get it for them. I'll make sure that we're all on the same page for a throw in. And remember what Ziggy Zigfried said about throw-ins. There are only 2 kinds of people in the world: those that know soccer and those that argue about throw-ins. So it really doesn't matter, but I don't want them obsessing about other things than offside and getting the goal, no goal right, because that's their job. Now, the more experienced the AR is, the more experienced the crew is working together, the higher level of the game, then you'll see the crews really be on the same page. And whether the AR is actually signaling for a foul or not, I assure you that there's been some way of recognizing that the call needs to be made or not made, that the crew has settled upon as an informal signal, a subtle signal. So, and then in certain cases, an AR will absolutely signal for a foul that needs to be called. But we always tell the ARs, it's the referee's game. If the referee has said 3 times in a row, when a ball does this and hits a player's hand, that's not a handling foul, then when it happens in front of you, you better not raise the flag and call it a handling foul, because the referee has set the tone for that game. We want consistency for that game. But an AR can be of great help. But how does that happen? By getting experience. That first year 14-year-old, he's just like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to know which way I should point the flag, because he's nervous or she's nervous, right? So how do we have to make sure that these people survive that first year, and I hate to put it in those terms, but they're going to make mistakes.
The common refrain I hear is that they're afraid to take the whistle, right? That's what we're creating an environment.
Yeah, I've got young ARs now, even 16 and 17-year-olds that have been doing this for years, several years, who's, when I say, are you ready for a whistle? Which is, for those of you that they don't know, that's the center referee. Are you ready for your whistle? And they go, no, absolutely not. No. I can be sort of anonymous over on the sidelines. But if I'm out there, then everybody's going to be yelling at me. And that's what they tell me. So your question to me should be, well, then how do we solve that? Well, I'll do the game with them, right? And I know this league and the other league as well have heard from me when I've been an AR and coach or a spectator has misbehaved. I document it. I say, you guys got to fix this, because I'm not going to let that 15 or 16-year-old get abuse. And so we have to create situations where they can work with more experienced referees. Here's the problem. Today, we're having trouble putting crews on 9v9 games, which was the perfect place for them to learn. I'm staffing games, and so are my fellow assigners. We're staffing the U11s and U12s with only one referee, because that's all we got. And it's really difficult to put a 14-year-old on a U14 game and their first season. So how do we get them experience? It's a challenge.
You have another question, Dave? Or?
Nope. Yeah, Keith.
I have a question, Bill. Two questions here, Dean. So I have a 7v7 boys team and a girls team in South Jersey soccer leagues, both the girls and the boys. There's different rules. So, and normally you're actually our assignment. How does a coach like myself approach the ref before the game? Because they also coach multiple leagues, same days. You know, what's the best way for me as a coach? Like, not I know what the rules are, and I always keep my mouth shut, because I think that's the best approach. And then figure it out during the game. And then, you know, in the girls' league, once the ball leaves the 18, and the boys' league, once it's touched, should I approach the ref at all and say before the game, hey, what's the build-out line rule? Because in my opinion, the build-out line is there for a reason. It should actually leave the 18 before the other kids are allowed to rush. But I think that's the purpose of it. But how do I approach the ref? And is it appropriate for me to approach the ref about that?
No, it's a great question. And you're absolutely right. The multiple rules that are out there, not counting friendlies and state cup games and tournaments, I assign 8 different competitions, 8 different leagues. And several of them have identical rules, but many of them have variations. And so I have to constantly remind referees that the rules for this competition are whatever. But when I've gone out and done 7v7 games to help fill in, or maybe to work with some young referees, the build-out line is a great example. In the team check-in, I remind the players, here's how we're playing today. Remember, you guys all know about the build-out line, right? Okay, you're going to hear me say, come on out, Red, whenever their keeper gets the ball, and I'm going to tell them. But here's the other thing I know. I understand what you're saying about a goal kick, and it's kicked and moved versus leaving the penalty area. But there are parents and coaches who don't understand that does not apply to the save by a keeper after they release the ball, because the release is a release. And I've had a parent come on the field and argue with the referee after the goalkeeper released the ball and the other team came in and legally played it. And I was the AR on the far side. I'm going, what the heck is this? Right? So yeah, it's a challenge. So to your point specifically, if the referee doesn't mention it politely. Hey, we're playing where the build-out line on a goal kick, it has to be touched by another player or leave the penalty area, correct? Or is it once it's kicked and moved? Get everybody on the same page. Nothing wrong with doing that. Better to do it then than in the 14th minute by yelling across the field at the referee. Not that you would do that, but you know, that's not the time to fix it. So I'd suggest that's a really good way. As long as the referee isn't going to be made to feel like you're putting them on the spot, like you don't trust them
before the game, right?
Yeah.
And that leads into my next question. So in Got Sport or Got Soccer, they have a feature for coaches to where you communicate prior to the game. Normally it's like a Friday night, you contact the opposing coach hey, we're at we're at Cohansey, and we're at Pensauken. Here goes the address. The field is behind the building behind here. We communicate this information. What uniform are you wearing? What if we added in a feature to where we could do a Zoom call with the refs included, to where the ref could be included in this? Hey, I'm the judge of the game. This, here goes the rule, whatever. Do you think that would benefit us or like yourselves, the refs, to be included in this communication? Like, all right, Northern Burlington's wearing white, Cherry Hill's wearing blue. You're a U7 game or a U8 game. Here goes some main rules that you probably should follow. And, do you think that would benefit that or the league or just the game itself?
So I'm an out of the box kind of guy. I like ideas, even if they maybe they spur other ideas, even if they don't work out. So I try not to be negative out of the box, not to beat that up. Here's some challenges. One, all right, I'm having trouble already recruiting referees for your games, let's just say. And now you're telling them, oh, by the way, you got to be available the night before. Guess what? Right before this call, I finally filled the last open slot I had tonight. I got a dozen referees out there working games tonight, right? So Saturday night, you want to be around at 8 o'clock at night as a referee to take a call to explain the nuances of the build out. I'm being devil's advocate, right?
I completely, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, so there's that issue. There's the issue of what does it really gain us if we do that? And there will be times when it will. I don't disagree. I would much rather be in a place where in that 30 minutes before the game, when the referee is there inspecting teams on the field, that if there's a question, we ask her. The first thing I'll do is if a coach asks a question that's somewhat related to general application of rules, I'll get the other coach over and say, hey guys, we're all going to be in the same place today. I may be wrong, but at least that day, the three of us know how wrong I'm going to be ahead of time. And so, or maybe they can explain to the referee, no. Remember, this is the boys league. In the boys league, we do it this way as a reminder. I have referees that on any given day, 4 games is now becoming the normal. And each of those 4 games is in a different competition. Okay. And literally, and we tell them to keep the rules with them on their phone or in a book. But their heads are spinning by 4 o'clock, and sometimes they forget. I don't. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to add to that is especially I see a lot, and we discussed this the other night when both leagues met, of a lot of the friction is at the really younger ages, U9, yes. U8. And part of that, I believe, is that coaches are new, as just the refs are new, and maybe they don't know the rules. And parents definitely don't know the rules. I've been on sidelines where advantage was given, and I keep saying this, and I'm looking at parents yelling when it was obvious that at least the ref was letting the play continue, and he gave advantage, and the parents had no idea what that meant. But I'm saying, as we have refs that are inexperienced, we have parents and coaches that are just as inexperienced. So a communication, like Keith said, whether it's before the game or immediately before the game, that actually might, be level setting and kind of, take some of the air out of that those reactions, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the reactions. So just so we're clear, there can always be a reaction like, oh my goodness, right? Or you got to be kidding me, that kind of thing. When it starts getting to call it both ways, that you've just accused the referee of being biased, right? So, so we can cross a line very quickly, but it's an emotional game, and there can be an outburst that quickly goes away. However, in general, the parents shouldn't be complaining about, especially if they don't know the laws. And if they do, guess what? Maybe the referee doesn't. They're not going to fix it by yelling on the field. Let's talk afterwards. Now, and you bring up a really important point, though. Most of these incidents, in fact, everything I've dealt with, I think this spring so far, has been U12 or younger in terms of abusive behavior or inappropriate behavior. So you're right, it is the younger ages, and often it's a combination of coach and experience, parent and player and experience. And guess who's working the youngest age games? The youngest, less experienced referees. So it's a perfect storm. And what are the options? Well, we could grab those 100 experienced referees that I didn't give any games to this week because I just felt like having them sit home alone, and put them. Oh, right. That's what people actually have accused assigners. How come they believe that somehow there are referees not working when John and Rich and I are out there every Friday night begging people to take a game for us. So we're not going to fix it that way. We're not going to fix it by waving a wand over the referees and suddenly making them smarter. That's not going to happen. What we have to do is buy them time to learn. And that means everybody from U12 down has to have agreed we're going to be okay with that.
Right.
We're going to be okay. And that's really the pledge that every U12 and under coach and parent needs to make is, right, I am going to be okay when a mistake is made, provided the coach brings the mistake to the attention of the league, and I have some assurance that that will lead to better training.
Right.
Then we'll buy some time.
And even at those ages, as a player, it wasn't until I was 11v11 that I knew that it was a different game for me. Even the rules, it could be the same rules, but they're different. Yeah, the game's different. So it's almost like pre-soccer with 7v7 small sided, 9v9 small sided. All this heat that you have between the two, those that are at the field. It's like, you're not even at the 11v11 age. You're not even at the big field age, right? We need to get there. You need to understand that's the soccer game. And these are I don't want to downplay people's emotions or anything like that, but you're not putting out a Premier League team at 9v9. You're just not. And you have kids probably that aren't even, physically mature enough to understand the game, right?
So if we look at back before they folded the U.S. Development Academy, which had U12 soccer, which started with U12 soccer, and these were the highest skilled kids in the region playing these games. They had only put one referee on the game, and the referee's job there was really just to fulfill the need for a referee for a safety perspective, but it was zero tolerance for any coach, player, or spectator to say anything about anything. If the referee blew and pointed the wrong way, then we lined up for the free kick going the wrong way. And those kids were the best players in the area. They learned how to play soccer, though. They didn't learn how to complain. So maybe, and European leagues are like that. With the professional clubs and their feeder programs, it's like, we're here to play soccer. We're not here to entertain the fans. And so we're here to learn soccer, to be more accurate. So maybe we could get back to that.
And I can attest to that too. Because my son has played at all the levels, all the way through ODP and actually played over in England for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I could tell you firsthand that the parents do not yell, especially at the youth level, at those high levels there of play. So do you remember, Dan, back in the day, we had instituted, a lot of clubs had instituted a silent Sunday, I think is what we called it, where the parents weren't it was like every other week or something like that. The parents were not allowed to actually speak at all. They weren't allowed to even cheer or anything like that. I mean, it's horrible to coach a game that way, because literally it was dismal to watch everybody just sitting there doing nothing. But, would something like that help? Or
plexiglass boxes like hockey.
Yeah.
So I always thought that what it did was emphasize how bad it was on the other weekends. Right. I mean, people say, "Oh, we just got to get through this, and we can go back to yelling at the referee next week." In other words, it deflects from the real concern or the issue, which is, hey, why don't we just stop yelling at the referees? But we get to still cheer for our children. If they score a goal, why can't we yell and cheer? Right. As long as we're not taunting the other team. I never particularly liked those. There was New Jersey Youth Soccer had something called SAGE a couple decades back about sportsmanship and EDP I know it's a competitors league. Has got something called the respect and etiquette policy that they try to enforce with their spectators. And yeah, I think here's the interesting thing. I've been at games where that one person who was obnoxious from the opening kickoff finally gets asked to leave. And there have been people on his or her team, usually
They're happy about
his
it.
or her team are clapping. Finally, we got rid of him so we can enjoy the game. So I don't think most people are the issue. What I do know is that when you get fired up, if it doesn't get contained, the fire can spread, right? So the sooner that we crack down on somebody who is kick-starting the fire, I think would help. But I'm not a fan of silent days. I think it just, I want to go out. If I watch my kids, and when I watched my kids, I wanted to cheer also.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have a
okay, Dan,
question.
so, well, we're at like 10 after 9, and I don't really want to take too much more of Dan's time. He's a valued guest, and I hope you'll come back when we have others, more things to discuss. Hopefully, an improvement in the sideline temperatures that after at least we're discussing it now, and at least we all kind of recognize the elements that are that are in this mix right now, right? It's not just everybody's kind of grumbling about this, that, or the other thing. We kind of have a discussion about this. So if there's any final thoughts, maybe we can wrap this up and maybe talk about having you on again. If it works for you. But if there's any final thoughts, floor is open.
I have one question, Dan.
Mhm.
3,000 games. I'm gonna just round it. We have from the refs that reported the red cards and the yellow cards. We have 28 red cards, 200 yellow cards. Is that good or bad?
That's it.
Depends on what they're for, right? So a red card that's for two yellows is not the same as a red card for violent conduct or spitting, right? A red card for denying a goal is not the same as a red card for serious foul play, right? So I would say yellow cards for dissent indicate issues. Since we don't card spectators, but we do card coaches, I would separate out the cards that coaches receive, because coaches should never get cards, right? Players gets cards because the game leads to players playing as hard as they possibly can, and every once in a while they cross over the line, and when they do, we have to give them misconduct. But I don't think you can draw anything from a raw number. Because for one thing, depending on the skill level, there are games where I've assessed a referee and there should have been cards, and the referee didn't issue the cards, and that becomes a talking point with the referee because they're not recognizing misconduct. I've seen another game which probably would have spun out of control with a different referee, and the referee in that game managed the game and kept the players focused and didn't have to issue cards. So the card is a symptom, but in and of itself, it isn't a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity. I'd be happy to stop back and talk again another time. First off, I do want to thank the league, because you guys are very proactive. You've reached out to me and said, what can we do about this? And when I've offered suggestions, you've listened, and I appreciate that, as have my fellow assigners, by the way. Not speaking for them, but I know they share that feeling. And so I want to applaud SJSL for being proactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you. This podcast will be available on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. I just got that set up, so that should be something you can subscribe to on your phone or iPad or other device. And keep your eyes and ears open for more stuff from SJS1. And everyone have a good night. Thank you.
Good night,
Good night.
guys. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Dan.